All right, so it's recording. So, any questions on that work y'all was doing last night on 3.5 and 3.6?
Hey, Dr. Rafton.
Yeah,
So I don't have a question on the homework, but I'm having trouble finding the study guide.
the study guide for my test.
Yes, sir.
Those should all be showing up in the assignments when you go to your math lab.
Yes, sir.
So let me share that screen, and I'm gonna go to my math lab. All right, let me get that going. So let's see. All right, so y'all should be seeing my desktop at the moment. So I'm going to go back to, so everything, all your assignments, when you come over here and you click your My Lab student links, that's going to bring up everything you can access through Math Lab. So we're looking for our study guide, which is our really the review for the first test.
Okay, is that the name of it?
Yeah, it should say, let me pull it up. It should be like test one review, I think we call it. Let me look.
I think I can see it now. Review for test number 1.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to find that that'll have pretty much the same 20 questions that I put on my test.
Gotcha.
So down here, yeah, it just says review for test one.
Okay, gotcha. I see it now.
Mm-hmm. Now you won't see the actual test until later tonight. I'll assign the test. So it'll show up on your assignments right after this review.
Okay.
And test one is due Sunday night. So I open it tonight, and then you got till Sunday night to do that. So practice that review because it counts as a quiz grade, which is 5% of y'all's overall grade, which is
Yes,
it's not
sir.
a lot, but since that review is just like my actual test, do it 2 or 3 times, get you a good grade on that little review, then go knock out that test, and you're going to do a good job on it.
Yes,
And
sir.
it'll keep the highest score on the
Yeah, if
review,
you
correct?
start out making a 90 and then second time you were doing it, but you didn't finish it and you just wanted to get off of it, so you made like a 60 or 70, it's going to keep that 90.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And you'll sort of see how it'll get you good practice for if you got to do any graphing on it. And just what type of answers they're wanting you to put into blanks. All right, so last night I had y'all working those systems of equations. So did y'all find them all right?
Yes.
Y'all do all right on 3.6? It was word problems. I think we worked 2 of them in class yesterday on that 3.6 with the triangles and stuff. So questions on that?
3.6 was definitely easier than 3.5.
Yeah, the trickiest thing on that 3.6 was just coming up with those equations. And then seeing how they wanted you to solve them, and you had to put the answers in the smallest to largest or certain orders, but other than that, I didn't mind it.
The slope-intercept formula questions, I'm not sure if that was on 3.5 or 3.6, but those were confusing in the fact that you don't actually go straight to the number, like the fraction that it gave you. You have to start at.
Okay, so you're talking about support, I think.
Maybe it's support.
And in support, they might have gave you, so let me go to my camera because I think I know right what you're talking about. Because they were having you practice different methods of graphing. So one method they wanted you to use intercepts to graph. And then later on it started coming in and it said graph the line using slope intercept. Well, they might have gave you an equation like y equals, let's say 2/3 x plus 4. So when they give you the equation and they want you to use the slope intercept, let me draw me a graph here. And I tried to zoom that camera in just a little bit to make it easier to see. So I'm going to go about, let's see, 5 already get me what I need on this one. But I'll tell you what, this is my favorite way to graph if it's already solved for the y. Because the table method, you had to pick your x values, plug it in, and get the y values. When they asked you to graph by intercepts, you had to find the x-intercept and then the y-intercept using zeros and plot those 2 points. The slope-intercept method that we're going to look at is fairly quick and easy. This last number, this is y equals mx plus b form of a line. The last number b is your y-intercept. So that's your y-intercept. And the fraction in front of the number, it could be a fraction or a whole number. But if it's a whole number, you still got to treat it like it's a fraction and put a 1 under it when you're talking about slope. But yeah, this is the m, which is the slope of my line. It tells me how to go from one point to another on my line, okay? So any point, I can go with my slope and get to another point on that line. Now the slope is always rise over run, which means the y's are on top and the x's are technically on bottom when we move our point, okay? So here's what you do. Since they gave you 4 for the y-intercept, you go to the y-axis, which is the vertical axis, and put your first dot on that 4. So y'all with me? So that last number is always the y-intercept. Now, if you don't have a number here like this plus 4, then the y-intercept would be 0. So that's the only number that don't have to be written that's understood to be a y-intercept, okay? So now look here, they gave me the slope of 2/3. Since the y's are the top and the x's on the bottom, I'm going to start with the 2 on top. I take that point where I was at 4, and since the y is positive 2, I'm going to go up 2 units, which will pretty much put me at 6 on the y-axis. Now, had that been negative, I would have went down 2 from that 4, okay? But it was positive, so when the y is positive, you move up. The x is always going to be positive on the bottom. So the x goes from where you stopped on the y and goes right 3 units. So I would go over 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units. Where I stop, I put my second point. And when you do that on MATLAB, it's going to draw you a line right through that. Okay? Now, let me show you one with a negative. So I'll come down here and I'll do, say, y equals negative 1/2 x minus 1. All right, so we're going to draw our graph here. And I'll go at about 5 on this one. So I need to move that down just a little. So that's my y, my x, and then I got -5 this way. So once again, I'm happy this one was already solved. So what I would do now, that y-intercept on this one is a -1. So go to your y-axis, go down to -1, and put that first dot. So this number always tells you where you're crossing your y-axis at, okay? Sort of like it intercepts it. Now notice this slope is -1/2. If your slope is negative, keep the negative on the top, okay? So the top number can either go up or down. The bottom number, you always want that to be positive and move to the right. So my y's on top, member, my x's are on bottom. So from my point I'm at -1, I'm going to go down 1 unit because it was negative. And then the 1/2 wants me to go right 2. So I go right 2, put my second dot where I stop. That line's going to go negative. A negative slope goes downhill. A positive slope like I had up here goes uphill. Okay? So if it's already solved, that's what I use when I graph. If it's got like x's and y's on one side equal to a number, that's when I might come in and pick x's and y's, or even use that intercept method, okay? All right, y'all, so let me see. I was going to look on that chat real quick. So, where'd my chat go? Right here. All right, so on the chat, let's see. Someone said graphing inequalities was difficult. All right, so is that the 3.7 inequalities? So who was that? Samantha asked that?
Yes.
Okay, so 3.7 was the, and this was really the last material for test 1, okay? Now I did send y'all stuff for 7.1, which is fairly easy little section. So that we got to keep going, but we're gonna look at this 3.7. So I'm gonna come back to my camera and give y'all really a lesson on that real quick. All right, so 3.7 is graphing inequalities or systems of inequalities. So the first thing we got to do is learn how to graph our inequalities. So I got really 4 things I'm looking at. On these, we got to figure out what kind of line we need to draw, because a dotted line means that anything that's on that line makes it not true, and a solid line means that points that are on the line make it true. So we figure out what kind of line we got to draw. Then we got to figure out, since it's greater than and less than, are we going to shade above our lines or are we going to shade below the lines? So the first 2 choices deal with what kind of line you're going to draw. So if your inequality has equals in it, you're going to use a solid line. All right, I had to shut that door real quick. So equals under your inequality, use a solid line, and you got to choose your line on MathLab when you're graphing them. It'll have a little box, and it'll have like a solid line and a dotted one. By default, it's on the solid one, but you got to click it to the dotted line if your graph has that, okay? All right, so second, if it's greater than or less than, that's when you're going to use a dotted line. So there's no equals under these two inequalities. Use a dotted line, okay? Now, the next two deal with where I'm going to shade it. Now, the shade in MathLab, it'll have, I think, like it looks like a little paint can. So when you shade your graph, you click on that little paint can and drag it either above that line or below it, and it'll shade it for you, okay? So I'll click on MathLab and we'll look at me actually graphing one of these after I'll show you how to do them. Now, if it's greater than or equals or greater than, the moral is if it's greater than, you're going to shade above that line. So I guess my last two choices, if it's less than and equals or less than, I'm going to shade below the line, okay? Now let me put a little star here and remind y'all about one thing. If dividing the variable by a negative number to make it positive, we reverse the inequality. Okay, so what that means, if dividing the variable, that variable means the y. So when you're solving this and you got like a negative y is less than something, when you divide that negative y by -1 to make it positive, you gotta reverse the inequality around, okay? So let's see what I got here. So we're going to graph the inequality on a plane. So when you do these problems, anything that you shade means that if you pick a point out of that shaded area, it will make our inequality true when we plug them numbers in. The unshaded areas, if you plug them numbers into your inequality, make it false. So they're going to start me out with y greater than or equal to x minus 2. So this one, they already solved it, so I can go right to my graph. And let me go out about 5 on this. Now, I got two real easy ways I can graph this. I can make an X and Y table. You know, come over here, make me an X and Y table. Pick two numbers and get the Y values quick. I could do that new method we learned, the slope intercept, and make it really quick. So I mean, two different ways. So if you do the slope intercept method, remember there is a number in front of that that X, and that's like a 1. And remember, to make a 1 look like a fraction, you got to put a 1 under it. So the slope always has to look like a fraction when you use it over here. So you would start at -2 on the y-axis, and then go up 1 and right 1. Now, if I was picking numbers, I would probably pick a 0 and a 2. Because 0 minus 2 would give you a -2 for the y. Put an x in a 2. 2 minus 2 would give you a 0 for the y. So your points, look at this. 0, -2. And then my second point would be 2, 0. So they wouldn't be using the same 2 points to plot the line. But notice, it's still a straight line no matter which way you picked, okay? Both of those will go through there. So here's the question, number 1. Do I want to use a dotted line or a solid line on this problem? And you are looking at that little inequality right there.
Solid.
Because remember, we said if it's got equals in it, you got to use a solid line. So that solid line is going to go through there like that. So when you plot these 2 points, by default, it should be on the solid line, so you don't have to switch it for this one. Now, do I want to shade it above the line or below the line?
Above.
See, I had what, greater than, so it's going to shade above the line. So basically, it would be shading all this up here. Any point on that line makes that a true statement. Any point in the shaded green makes that a true statement. Anything not shaded down here makes that false. So look at here, 0, 0, that point right in the middle, 0, 0 is shaded. So if you put a 0 over here, you would have 0 greater than or equal to 0 minus 2. Right? You put a 0 in for the y, 0 in for the x. Was 0 greater than or equal to -2? Is that true or false? Well, 0 is definitely greater than any negative number, so that is true. So if I wanted to check points, I could just see if it made it true or false, and that would definitely tell me where I'm shading those, okay? All right, so that makes sense now. We're going to use these rules up here. Equals, solid, no equals, dotted, and then greater than, above, less than, below. Now, I'm going to show you one here that you got to do the switching on the inequality. So this one had 3x minus 2y is less than or equal to a -4. And I'd probably want to solve these for the y anyway, because I would want to be able to graph them in my calculator. And when you graph them on a calculator, it's pretty cool because it'll shade it for you. So I'm going to solve this for the y. So my first step, I'm going to subtract that 3x. So I'll bring down that -2y. It's going to be less than or equal to. Now over here, -4 and the -3x, they're not like terms. So I'm just going to put the -3x first and then the -4 after it. So that it gets more like that y equals mx plus b going on, okay? Now, here's where we got to do something. To solve that for the y and make that a 1y, I need to divide that by -2. So since I'm going to divide that by -2, that means I've got to reverse my inequality, and it's now a greater than. Then I have -3 divided by -2 for my x, and then at the end, minus my 4 divided by -2. Since everything was negative and they're all being divided by -2, everything's going to become positive. So -2 divided by -2 gives me a positive 1y. It's going to be greater than or equal to. So remember, you got to reverse that because I divided by the negative. Over here, negative divided by negative will just make that a 3/2 x. And then a negative divided by negative at the end makes that what? A +2. Now I've got it solved, so I would probably just use that slope intercept to graph that because we had to solve it anyway to check it on the calculator. So here's my x and y. So I'll go out 5. And I'm doing them this way too to help you on that support stuff, okay? There's 5, and then what I got here, -5. All right, so remember, the quick way is to start at the 2 on the y-axis. So let's go 1 up, and there's 2. Slope is my y's over my x's. The y is +3, so starting at 2, You go up 3, so 1, 2, 3. The bottom number is always positive, and it goes right 2, so go right 1, right 2, and put your second dot. So, time for the line. Do I want a solid or dotted line?
Dotted.
What'd y'all just say?
Dotted.
Oh, but watch out, because you got a line under that.
It's a solid.
Oh, it's a
Solid, there you
solid.
go. I always think of these as, well, this one's got a line under it, so it's going to be a solid line over here. Now,
Okay.
above or below? And I was getting my other class on this one.
Say above the line.
Above the line, because you always got to go with the final inequality. Good job. So you just come in and shade that. Everything shaded and on the line makes it true. Everything down here makes that false. All right, so then you started with number 3. It started giving you single variables. So this we was wanting to go into your memory when you first learned graphing. So this one has a x is greater than 5. So unfortunately, this one we cannot do in the calculator because it's only got the x variable, and our calculators are set up for the y variable. But here's the thing. When you got x equals a number, x greater than a number, x less than a number, anytime x is over here and a number's over here, this graph is going to be a vertical line. So when y'all graph lines in school, like x was equal to 5, it was a vertical line going down that 5 on that x, okay? So I'm going to make this go out to 5, it looks like. So here's the thing with this. Since that's a vertical line, every point on that line is going to have an x value of 5. It don't matter what the y values are, but every x will be 5. So if you're going to make a table on that with your x's and y's, all these x's got to be 5. No matter how many points you pick, x has to be 5. Then you can come over here and pick, well, hell, 0 and 1. Any y values you want to, but the x value has to be 5, okay? So over here on MathLab, you would click, I usually just go to the 5 on the x-axis. That's 1 point. And then go up or down 1 point and click it again. Okay? So, here's my question. Do I want this line to be solid or dotted?
Got it.
Dotted, because it does not have that equals. And since this is the x variable only, do x's get greater going to the right or to the left?
Greater to the right.
Greater to the right. So what would happen? You would use the dotted tool on MathLab to get your line. So make sure you switch that and then drag the little paint can to the right of it and it'll shade it for you. So everything that's shaded, all these points have x values that are greater than 5. But see, none of these points on the line could be given because this x value is 5, but 5 is not greater than 5. 5 is equal to 5. So since it's not greater than 5, that line is dotted. Anything over here, all these x values are going to be less than that 5, okay? So if that, let's see, this one has y is less than or equal to -3. So if that x line was vertical What y'all think this Y line is going to be? It will be horizontal. So now the Y, you could do that one on the calculator. Go to Y equals, put a -3 in it, and it's going to draw you a line going right across there. So y'all, here's the question. If I was to make me a table to graph that, and if you put this in Y equals on your calculator, guess what? Every single Y value is going to be -3. So on the X's, X had to be the number. On the Y, Y has to be every number. And then you can come over here if you wanted 2 points. Pick any 2 points you want. All right, so let me graph this. These little graphs aren't bad once you just get your memories recalled about how to do these lines, okay? So I usually go to -3 on the y-axis, which is right here. So the variable tells you which of these two lines it's got to be on with that first point. And then I can go left or right 1 unit, get my second point. So I could pick any point along that line. So y'all want this one solid or dotted?
Solid.
So it's going to be solid going right across that -3. And then are we shading above or below?
Shaded below.
Shading below. So everything from the line down makes that true. On those Y's, everything above it makes it false. So y'all, we might as well knock out this last one. It's graphing inequalities, a system of inequalities, okay? So we're going to graph the system. Now, the solution to a system is the double shaded region. Okay, they're going to give me 2 equations. One's going to shade one way, the other equation will shade its way. The answer will be where they intersect and you have the double shading. So this one, they gave me y greater than or equal to x plus 4. Then I got y is less than or equal to 1 minus x. So y'all, I would probably just come in. You can do the intercept method on this, the slope intercept. But remember, that -x should be here and the 1 here. So on this one, the slope would be negative if you tried to do it that way. But I'm just going to use 0 and 1, 0 and 1. So 0 plus 4 is 4, so I get a 4 there. 1 plus 4 is 5. So I got my first points I'm going to draw my first line with. This one, if I put a 0 in, 1 minus 0 is 1. If I put a 1 in, 1 minus 1 is 0. So let's draw our graph because we got our 2 lines now. Now, if you did this one by slope intercept method, you would start at 4, and then the slope would be 1 over 1. So you go up 1 and right 1. All right, so let's see. The first line, 0, 4. So I go up 0 to 4, which was your y-intercept on that one. My next point was 1, 5. So I go right 1 and up 5. So it's sort of tricky. When you do points, you do your x and then your y. When you do your slope, you do your y and then your x. So they're sort of backwards of each other. All right, so I need to know on this one, are y'all wanting that to be solid or dotted? So remember,
Solid, solid.
because there's a line there. We know that's a
Right.
solid line coming up through there. In that one, what are y'all shading, above or below? Let's see, that was my first one, right? So that's going to be shade
Yeah,
above
so shade above.
for the greater than. So I know that thing's shading all this up through here, all thing above that line. All right, second line, 0.01. So here's 0, 1. And then 1, 0. So here's 1, 0. So that line technically would go this way. Because remember, it had a negative x, so that means that negative slope goes downhill. All right, this one is less than. So on this line, we're going to shade below it. So I'm just going to come in and sort of shade below that line, and I'm using a different color for it. So the answer to this problem, y'all, is this sort of triangular looking section where I got both of them shaded in it. So this, and all this over here, okay? So when you do MATLAB on that one, it's got 4 pictures, and you're looking for the one that sort of has a little triangle shaded on it only, okay? You don't want this on it or the bottom because they're not double shaded. You just want to find the one that has your double shaded part on it. So those were the, what was that, 5 or 6 questions that are in that section. So let me show you how to do the problem I just did on your calculator so y'all can learn how to shade on that. So I'm going to share my screen with my calculator. And I'm going to do this problem y greater than or equal to x plus 4. And then I had y less than or equal to 1 minus x. I want y'all to see how this calculator will shade for you. Now, instructions will be a little different for the older calculators. So if you got the plus CE like I'm using, you'll do exactly like I'm doing. If you got the older calculators, I'll sort of tell you what you're doing on those. So you're going to pull up y equals here. I'm going to put in my equation, so let me clear this. My first equation was x plus 4, so I got an x plus 4. Now, for us to shade, we're going to go all the way left. On these calculators, you see a blue box and a curvy line or a slanted line. So I'm going to go all the way left to the left of the y equals. Now, on the older calculators, yours only graphs in black. So what you would do would hit enter on your calculator until you've seen a picture of a triangle that looked like it was above. And then if you hit enter again, it'll show a triangle that looks like it's below. So it goes through sort of different line options, but then it shows you those triangles. So let me get to, on these newer calculators, you get to the left of the Y1 and hit enter. I'm going to let my line be blue, but what I want to do is arrow down to where it says line. Now, see how it's blinking? I'm going to go left to right. So let me show you what the shade above looks like. You see that triangle that looks like it's above? That's to shade above. The next one is the shade below. So that one was greater than, so I'm going to go back until I get my shade above, which is the triangle right there. I'm going to hit OK. So let me go down. I got to use my, and hit OK. So now it's going to do that for my Y1. So now I'm going to go to Y2. I'm going to go over here and put that equation in. And Y2 was 1 minus X. So I'm going to go 1 minus X. Now, let's arrow left to the left side of the Y2. Now remember, older calculators, just hit enter till you get that triangle that looks like it's below. So your triangle would look just like mine. So let me go down here. So triangle above, that triangle's below. So hit enter for that. I'm gonna go down here to OK. So now I got these two equations. Over here, you see I got shade above triangle, got my shade below triangle. So we're about to see our answer. So we're going to hit graph. And this is why I like the new calculators, because look, that's going across blue. This is going across red. And I can tell my double shaded area sort of is almost a little bit purpley looking. So I gotta love that, right? Now, older calculators, it's just going to do black shading above, black shading below, but you'll still be able to see where it's crisscrossing at, okay?
So to shade it on the homework,
Okay, so now we're going to go
on
to
the graph
MathLab.
on
So
our
let me
homework,
stop this one, and I'm going to go to
is that what the
MathLab.
little paint bucket, is for?
So let me go to, y'all are 3.7. So let me move this out of my way.
I was wondering what the hell that was for.
So 3.7. So let me review that on my end. So I might have to reshare my screen if this is not popping up. All right, and since all of y'all are on here right now, I wanted to remind y'all some. I sent a bonus in your email today. You can work it on the Word document I sent it on or the PDF and email that back. You can screenshot it. I got my text phone number on there, so just screenshot it and text it to me and let me know who you are. Any way you can get it to me. All right, are y'all seeing the
And
homework?
when is that due?
Sunday night when the test is due.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll take it anytime until then. I'll keep on it. I'll have it wrote down, and then once I see that your test is graded, I'll go add that in. Are y'all seeing a problem on your screen now?
No.
Just the list of
Y is
all
greater than
the,
Yes.
Y greater than X minus 3. So say I solved this and I got my
No.
points.
We
Yeah.
don't see the
I
problem.
can see
All right,
it.
let me reshare. Sometimes it don't follow me through. So it should be starting to pop up for y'all.
Okay, now I see it.
Yes,
So y'all good?
yes.
All right, so I solved this, and I'm going to come in here to click to enlarge my graph. And then it's going to pull up my little box with my options. So I do notice this does not have equals under it. So I need to use the dotted line. So y'all see there's a paint can. To the right of it's the solid line, and bottom of that is the dotted line. So click that dotted line first. Then come up here and grab your line tool. And let's see, if I put a 0 in, I get 0 minus 3. So that'll give me a -3. So 0, -3. Also, I'm starting at the y-intercept of -3. So click that one. And then the slope of this would be 1. So that means go up 1 and right 1. So you could go up 1 and right 1. Or you could have put a 3 in for the x, and 3 minus 3 would be 0. So if you notice up here at 3, 0 is also on that line. So no matter how you get to the second point, any way you want, okay? Click that line. So now we got our line drawn. So now you come up here and click this paint can, region shading tool. And you see I can either drag it above or below. So since this was greater than, I'm going to shade it above. So just drop that paint pan there, click it, and then you want to save that and go.
Okay. Thank you.
And basically that's what you're going to do. So let me go to that one where I was going to do the X's real quick. I think that was 3. So here we go. X less than -6. Click that graph. That's a dotted line again because it's less than. So -6, I'm going to grab the line tool. So X -6 is on the X-axis at -6. Go up 1, click it, and then go over here, paint can. This time less than wants me to shade left. So bring it over and click it. So those X and Y ones, you can knock them out really quick and then shade them and go. All right, so that would be the last chapter that was on my college algebra #1 test, okay? So now y'all should be able to knock out my 3-7 and then probably start working on that review. If y'all want to do a review tomorrow for the test 1, I'll do the review of the 20 questions on my study guide. And then y'all can use that to help you study if you need to. And then if you got questions over 7-1, symmetry type stuff, I can go over those. So I'm going to pull up chat and see if anyone's got anything else they needed. So it looks like we got that. Inequalities we got. All right, so do any of y'all got questions that are still bugging y'all? All right, so y'all, what I would do, knock out your homework and then start playing with my study guide. Remember, there is a bonus in your email. It's just 3 problems, and it's worth a total of 5 points, what don't seem a lot, but remember, it's 5 test points, so that's half a letter grade, okay? And they're not too bad. I've already had someone make 100 on that, so they got 5 points coming. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to stop our recording, and then I will send this out on my videos later, and y'all have it to fall back on with this 3-7, okay?